Antoinette Lattouf and the ABC, what a terrific result it was this week for journalism and media against the tyranny of the Israel lobby, a foreign lobby, henpecking journalists and media organisations in Australia. How embarrassing it was for the ABC to be cowed, to sack its own journalist, then prevaricate about it, and then fight a case in public where there was no win, no matter whether there was a settlement, no matter whether it went to final decision in the court or not. There was no win to have this tawdry show in public, this capitulation to a foreign lobby group. So how does this all work? Well, having spent 2 decades on the newsroom floors of both Fairfax, now Nine Entertainment, and News Corp, more than 2 decades, we're reasonably well placed to explain the power of the Zionist lobby and how they control the media globally. They use both the carrot and the stick, it should be said up front. If you check out this picture of 4 people rolling around in the Dead Sea mud on an Israel junket, that's from the left to right, Bevan Shields on the left, presently the editor of the Sydney Morning Herald. There's David Lipson next along, who is the ABC chief political guy down in Canberra. There's Ben English next, second from the right, and Ben is now the editor-in-chief of the Daily Telegraph, Rupert Murdoch's #1 tabloid property in New South Wales. And they swap stories, of course, with the Herald Sun in Melbourne. And of course, the inimitable Sharry Markson, probably Australia's #1 Israel lobbyist, who is a host on Rupert's Sky News. There they are, rolling around in the mud on their Israel junket. What a magnificent photograph it is. How a picture tells 1,000 words. The Israel lobby soirees any up-and-coming media or political figure on Israel trips, where they brainwash them, basically, or charm them, push their story. But it's the stick, not the carrot, which is far more powerful. And we'll get to that momentarily. First, just a couple of remarks on the Lattouf ABC case. For those who missed it, Antoinette Lattouf was casually working at the ABC and was sacked for a tweet, a retweet, in fact, of an Amnesty International tweet, which was true. The ABC had even reported that very report by Amnesty on its own website. Now, this came, the pressure on ABC management, after a coordinated barrage of complaints, one of the tools of their trade, by the Lawyers for Israel. Dozens of lawyers lobbying for Israel, for the state of Israel. Australian lawyers. Let's not fail to call this what it is. It is foreign interference on behalf of people who champion the cause of a genocidal foreign government, that of Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, the Antoinette Lattouf case is an egregious example of Zionist lobby group pressure. It's not just the usual censorship, self-censorship, or some career editor shy of upsetting the Israel lobby. This is interference at board level via the chair, Ita Buttrose, and a craven upper management not willing to stand up for their reporter against external interests, representing the interests of a foreign government. And so the judgment is indeed welcomed by the federal court this week. A $70,000 payout to Antoinette Lattouf sounds a bit slim to me, given the ordeal she's been put through. Public humiliation for the ABC and cost orders to come. $1 million in costs. It cost the taxpayer, the public. They say it will probably be more. One sad part of the federal court decision, however, was the decision to whack a suppression order on the names of the culprits whose coordinated attack sparked the whole episode in the first place. Why are they? Why are they being protected, these people? These dozens of people with their barrage of complaints. Why is the court protecting the genocide lobby? Now, coordinated mass complaints by various of the dozens of Israel lobby groups in Australia and doxing of pro-Palestinian or pro-peace people on social media are long-term tactics. But the overall scam runs deeper. It runs like this. The Israel lobby, whether it's the ADL or whether it's any of the lobby groups, they complain and debate every story about Israel on the mainstream media. They get in there physically to visit editors. They demand meetings with editors and producers personally, in groups, and they claim anti-Semitism if the story doesn't skew the official Israel way, which we all know is mostly lies. 40 babies beheaded, mass rapes of October 7, failure to report the Hannibal Directive. We don't bomb hospitals, and now we're not starving an entire population in Gaza. All the lies, the daily lies. And so for decades, the Israel lobby has intimidated the mainstream media systematically across the world. And it leads to massive self-censorship and a regime of fear. This is the point. This is the central point. If you are an editor of a newspaper or a TV producer on daily deadlines, your time is extremely precious. In newspapers, you have a certain amount of space to fill each day, each and every day, and limited time. You can't afford 2-hour meetings with people scrapping over every word, caption, byline, every disputed claim, that whether a denial is placed high enough in the story, every word is parsed. And so it is that self-censorship has ruled the Australian media and the global media for decades. The fear of lost time, the fear of being called anti-Semitic. The managers would not be managers. And this is the same for all corporations, were they not ambitious people who acted firstly in their own interests. And so acting in their own interests, particularly with the decline revenue-wise of the media and the cost pressures, acting in their own interests means not upsetting the Israel lobby. It's as simple as that, because you know that you will get complaints. So the editors and the producers, the higher-ups in these organisations, they know and they anticipate the consequences. What is this stick, though? Is it all the way up the management chain? Yes, it is. The threat of being labelled anti-Semitic. That is the stick. Such has been the gravity of this charge and the career-ending nature of being called anti-Semitic. It does end careers. Jeremy Corbyn. Mike Carlton was a classic. Told the truth. SMH columnist. Lost his job after a barrage of complaints. So the problem for the editors and producers is that their time is so precious that anticipating having to resolve complaints is the big challenge for them. If they stand their ground, if they back their own reporters, what is the penalty for defending your journalist being labelled anti-Semitic? And that claim will surely be elevated not only to the editor and the editor-in-chief or the publisher upstairs, or in TV, the executive producer or the line manager, but to the board of directors of the company, to investors, to anybody who holds sway that can exact some influence over the editorial process. And in turn, if they fear reprisals themselves, being called anti-Semitic, the heads of the companies, they will cover themselves. It is in their personal interest. So it is that media toes the line. For a government corporation such as the ABC, with its internecine complaints processes which soak up hours of form filling, it's particularly a problem. The corporate media doesn't have quite the problem that government agencies do. The ABC will at least, to give it the thumbs up, will at least openly address the broadcasters' failures. They have done and will continue to do that. Thank goodness for that. This does not happen elsewhere in media, particularly where news goes to die, which is just a blatant propaganda asset for America and Israel. Such are the consequences globally of this fear, this timidity by the media, by the fourth estate, that the mainstream media has missed, or at least severely underreported, the story of the century. They have framed Israel's barbaric actions as self-defense, even the American invasion of Iran. They framed this preposterously as Israel's self-defense, this war crime by America, given the thumbs up, the imprimatur by Penny Wong, Anthony Albanese and Richard Marles, our very own elected leaders. All this has led inevitably to a plunge in the credibility of the mainstream media around the world in favour of independent outlets such as this one. Because when the ADL or whoever it is comes knocking, when the genocide lobby comes knocking on our door, they know there's only one person to complain to, yours truly. So we get hammered on social media by, the 8200 crew and the trolls on Twitter. But we have been refreshingly free to report the facts, despite the pressure. The mainstream media has been so cowed that they don't even properly report both sides, just the Israel side. And in journalism, it happens all the time. Pressure from third parties. It's not just the Israel lobby, it's corporations too. When we're at the Herald at Fairfax last, Qantas and CBA were a constant pain in the ass, complaining all the time, trying to get rid of reporters who reported the truth, but you weren't allowed to call it the invasion of Iraq and all this sort of stuff. These guys are nothing. The Zionist level, the corporations, pale in comparison. You get a bit of pressure from these corporations, but the Zionist lobby is next level because of the spectre of being called anti-Semitic and losing your entire career, being disgraced. The principle for journalists, of course, should be just tell the story. That's your job. Both sides. Sure, have the pro-Israel people on, for sure, and then have peace lobby or Palestinian lobby on as well, and this is critical. We've had a couple of Arab community leaders in here about a year ago. It was quite tragic, really. They were in despair, saying that their relatives were being slaughtered, yet they could not get even the tiniest voice in the mainstream media. They said, we went to the SMH, we went to the Age, the ABC, the Guardian, even News Corp, but no joy. Even though these very media were effusively running victim pieces by the likes of the Lieblers and former Treasurer Josh Frydenberg, a Zionist, crying victimhood from their leafy mansions in the leafy suburbs, while delivering their imprimatur to the actions of the government of Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel. Blithely, the media reported these pieces. The conclusion really here is that the media have completely lost perspective. It's damaged, their cowardice has damaged them. End of game. Moral authority gone due to fear, due to not being able to stand up, to not having the courage to stand up on principle. And the consequences worldwide have been devastating, of course. Another 100 people murdered in Gaza, starving. As usual, they're starving an entire population, even babies. Starving babies from critical medicine and baby formula. I mean, it is an atrocity on an unprecedented scale. It makes you-know-who look almost humane. So appallingly has the media aborted its duty to tell the story fairly that it's delivered license to the political elites too, to also be cowed. And they are. Why, for instance, has Albo, who used to be such a vocal supporter of the oppressed people of Palestine, taking an entirely non-racist view of the world, why has Albo been so soft shoe, not wanting to take a stand, kowtowing to America and Israel? Because he too is afraid of being labelled anti-Semitic. He needs to be part of the club. He can't afford the luxury of principles in his political career. It's no excuse, but it's the reason. The scam, the anti-Semitic scam, has now lost its lustre. It's true that the decades of dehumanising Palestinians and Arabs by the Israel lobby, of linking any Western sympathy to the victims of genocide, linking any sympathisers or peace protesters to being terrorists or Hamas, relentless tactics, and they've worked, but the tide is turning. They work so well, in fact, that Arabs, who are human beings just like the rest of us, of course, have been dehumanised, and the reluctance of authorities to deal with this comes down to the same issues: fear. But the implications of this generational catastrophic brain fade by Western elites the consequences have been even deeper than that. The social unrest in the West caused by mass migration has been the upshot. Would millions of people be fleeing the Middle East if Israel and America had not destroyed Syria, Libya, Palestine, Lebanon, Iraq, and now Iran, Yemen? Had they been left to a peaceful existence, would they be fleeing en masse to the UK or Germany or Australia? No, they wouldn't. Has Western media even tackled this issue? Has Western media even asked the refugees why they fled? Have they examined properly the causes of mass migration? We can only hope that we've seen a turning point, with the global realisation now that it is the Israel lobby itself, it's the followers of Benjamin Netanyahu, who are to blame for anti-Semitism, for the rise of anti-Semitism, for the plight of Israel now, for the 400,000 people dead in the past 2 years, according to the latest numbers from Harvard, the latest analysis. Hamas has reported, of course, much more conservative numbers, around 60,000. Harvard's come out and said, look at those buried under the rubble, done some spatial examinations. 400,000, almost 400,000 people dead from this latest excursion of the brutal regime of Likud and Benjamin Netanyahu. If regime change is needed, then there is no greater need than America and particularly Israel, the proponents of this horrific genocide, and all those who support it, whether Christian Zionists, Jewish Zionists, or just nutjob right-wingers who watch too much Sky News of a night. Hopefully, it's now finally starting to change. Please like, share, and comment in the section below, and drop us a few bucks on Patreon if you can afford it.